All right, so where in the world are the seven largest communities of African American expats? Where have the Black people been going? We're going to talk about that today. If you've seen some recent articles in the Atlanta Journal Constitution and other outlets, you may see that people are starting to notice that Black people have been dipping out. So, where have we been going? I'm going to talk to you today about the largest communities of African American expats or Black expats that I know about today. Also, make sure that you stick around to the end because I'm going to give you a couple of communities that have fallen off of the list. I'm going to let you know why they've recently fallen off. All right, but first, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Stephanie Perry. I am a year round house sitter. I'm the creator of House Sitter School, and I help Black women embrace ease and doing less by house sitting, by taking a career break from work, by moving abroad, by bopping around the globe as a digital nomad. If that sounds good to you, make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Ring that notification bell so that you will be notified when I post a new video. Welcome. All right, so I have a list of the seven largest communities of African American expats abroad. Some caveats. I made this list up, okay, based on what I've been hearing out in these streets. I've been a YouTuber for quite a while, and I've interviewed quite a few people who have started their own communities abroad. Okay. And so I have made my list based on what the streets have been telling me, what the people who I've talked to, what the people whose channels I've watched have been telling me about where everybody's going. Okay. The seven communities on my list include three that I visited myself, or maybe more, and some that I haven't visited yet, just that I know about because everyone's talking about these places and because they have a large presence online. I think every community that I'm about to talk to you about has a like a Facebook group or some sort of online group for Black expats, right? They have large Facebook groups or large online communities specifically for Black expats, run by Black expats. And when I say large, I mean large. Some of these are in the 4,000 and 5,000 mark, right? And so this is how I'm judging the seven largest communities for African American expats. I'm not including people who have moved abroad for work, in particular the military, right? So if I were to make this list and include people who have moved abroad to work, it would include places like Seoul or South Korea anyway. I don't know necessarily Seoul, but Korea, probably Germany. I think the U.S. still has a pretty large military presence in Germany, I think, right? I'm not including this. I'm not including places where people have moved abroad for work. That would probably include Canada, right? I'm not including these cities or countries. This list is places where Black expats who are either retired or who work online or who have some other source of income, an online business, where these expats are going. People like me. Speaking of people like me, I'm making this video because I made a previous video called Worst Countries for Black Travelers, and some people just totally misunderstood the point of the video. And so I'm following up for that reason. I got a lot and still continue to get a lot of responses on my Worst Countries for Black Travelers video saying nobody treats Black people well and Black people aren't welcome anywhere. False. That's not true, okay? I titled the video Worst Countries. I said in the video multiple times, worst countries. Everyone who I interviewed had traveled extensively and was talking about their worst experiences, not the general experience of being a Black traveler abroad. And so I needed to make this video to make sure that you understand that there are places where Black people, in particular American people, are moving in order to thrive, right? In order to throw off the struggle of being Black in the United States, of being constantly policed, of having to look over your shoulder all the time. If your first thought when we start talking about moving abroad to some of these places is not safe, that place is not safe. My question for you is, do you feel safe where you live, right? Do you feel safe in St. Louis, in DC, in Chicago, in Atlanta? Do you? Right? Seriously? A lot of these places are significantly more safe than the city that you're living in today. Facts. That's just a fact. Don't let the propaganda that the United States has had to perpetuate in order to keep you here working, okay? Don't let that propaganda take a stronghold in your mind, okay? Accept that it is propaganda. It's just talk that has to be talked to keep American people here and working instead of abroad thriving. These large communities of African Americans are not moving abroad to places to still feel unsafe. They're moving abroad to these places because they are thriving. So I want to one more time say that video called Worst Countries for Black Travelers is about the worst experiences, not the normal experience, not the everyday experience, okay? So let's get to the list. 7 largest communities of African American expats abroad as determined by me and my homegirls, okay? Number 1 is Lisbon. Lisbon is the love of my life. I think that Lisbon is the place where I will settle down when it's time for me to create a home, right? Instead of just bopping around from place to place as a nomad. Lisbon, Portugal is the total package. Lisbon has good weather, good food, good beaches, easy access back to the United States. We're talking a 5 or 6 hour flight direct from New York or DC. I love Lisbon, and it's a place where you can learn the language. Portuguese is not like Vietnamese, right? Or Thai. Yeah, so I consider Lisbon the total package, and I'm not alone. This is not groundbreaking. The Black in Portugal Facebook group has thousands and thousands and thousands of members, and most of those people I think actually are in Portugal. They probably do have some members who are moving or in the process of moving to Portugal, but you can go to Lisbon and meet up with other Black people and have a good time and form community and build friendships with people right in Lisbon, Portugal. So I should say this list is not in the order of size, like how many Black Americans live in these places, because there's no info on that. I don't know that anyone has studied that. You can find lists of American expats, but those particularly are Americans who work abroad, like I said, and I don't want this list to be about working. Because frankly, if you want to move abroad, finding a job abroad is the least helpful way to move abroad, right? Especially if you're talking about going up to a place where the cost of living is relatively low compared to the city in the United States you've come from, okay? So speaking of going to a place where the cost of living is relatively low, let's move on to the number 2 city on my list. Lisbon was number 1. Number 2, Panama City, Panama is a place that I have not visited yet, and I hope to get to very soon. Panama City, Panama is very popular with Black people, very popular with Black people who have left the United States in particular. I've read articles and seen videos that compared it to Washington, D.C. and said that a lot of the people who are in Panama City are from Washington, D.C. Panama City is a place to go if you're looking for a better cost of living, a better life on less dollars, and if you're looking for some hot weather. If you're team boycott winter like me, you may very, very well fall in love with Panama City. There are communities for Black expats in Panama. There are communities for Black women expats in Panama. There seems to be always like events happening in Panama for Black expats. If you're wondering why somebody would go to Panama just to hang out with other Americans, it's because you get homesick, you get lonely, you want to hang out with people who you can have conversation with and who can understand what you're going through, the good and the bad. Also, the language difference, right? You're when you move to Panama, it may take you a while to learn some Spanish. It may take you a while until you can have conversations with people in Spanish. And so joining forces with other Americans, and especially other African Americans who have moved to Panama, or Black people from other places, right, who have moved to Panama, is really comforting. I have been in that position. I've spent months and months in Mexico at a time, and it was really wonderful to be in community with other Black women from the US. There's no feeling like it. If you feel like making friends today is really hard, move out of the country, right? Or leave the country for an extended period of time, and then you will meet other Black people who are doing the same thing and new best friends, right? You automatically have best friends. There is something about being a Black person out in the world, a Black person who has left the United States out in the world, that makes you like a friend magnet. So I recommend it. All right, so let's move on to number 3 on my list of the 7 largest communities of African American expats. Number 3, Ghana. Again, this is not in size, right? I think I don't know where Ghana would fall in the size range, but I know that there are a lot of people planning and making their plans to move to Ghana. Okay. Ghana is a little, in particular, Accra. Ghana is a little different from the other countries on this list in that Ghana isn't necessarily an easier place to move to and spend time in. I think that because a lot of the people who have moved to Ghana, even retirees who have moved to Ghana, are now working. So there is some sort of ease that happens when people move to some places that doesn't seem to happen for people when you move to Ghana. So keep in mind, if you're moving for a particular lifestyle, you'll need to get in community with people in Ghana and take a look at what their actual lifestyle is like. I watched a video from Expat Life Ghana. They're YouTubers. They have a video called Living Abroad as an American, how it changes you. And they talked about how they moved to Ghana, retired, and are now unretired and working. Okay? So keep in mind, if you're looking to go someplace that is easy, right, with an easier life, take a look at the other people in the community and see if they're actually living an easier life. This goes for all of the places on this list, and see if this is the kind of life that you want, right? Do you really want to move somewhere as a retiree and then start working because either the place is too expensive or because there are too many needs in the place and you can't get your needs met without creating the business yourself? Okay, so place number 4, I'm going to kind of cheat and make it 2 different cities in one country. Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and Mexico City. I'm just going to make them both number 4. Okay, we're going to act like this is one place. They're not one place. Playa del Carmen and Mexico City are very far from each other. Mexico's a big country, all right? But we're just going to make it one. Because I think Mexico in particular is a place where people can bop around very easily. So you can intend to move to Playa del Carmen, and you move to Playa del Carmen and still spend a significant amount of time in Mexico City. Mexico City is a place that I have visited and is a beautiful city. If you're as old as I am and you remember when the pictures of Mexico City were just smog all day, every day, it doesn't look like that anymore. I'm not saying that there's no smog, okay, but it doesn't look like that Mexico City from the 80s. It's probably the most cityest city in the world behind Tokyo, I would guess, right? I would guess that there's no city that is more city. If you like city life, like things to do, places to go, food to eat, right? If you like city life, I would guess Tokyo and Mexico City are tied, but Mexico City comes in on a much better dollar figure, and Mexico City much easier to get back and forth from the United States. So, and Mexico City is a place where you can learn the language a little easier. I would guess Spanish is easier to learn as an American than Japanese. Okay, so again, we're making Mexico City the cityest city in the world. I'm not a city person. Even I enjoy Mexico City because it's a city of neighborhoods. So even if you don't want to do city stuff like me and you just want to sit in the house, in a pretty house, you can do that in Mexico City too and still live a nice life in a community with grocery stores that you can walk to and with public transportation and inexpensive Uber and all of that. Okay, as for Playa del Carmen, it's the beach. Okay, I don't know what else to tell you. It's a beautiful beach. Mexico City and Playa del Carmen are not the least expensive places in Mexico. Okay, they're probably 2 of the most expensive places to move to in Mexico. But the fact that so many African Americans are moving there, it makes it evident that it's still pretty cheap. Particularly if you're coming from one of the big cities. If you're coming from the Bay Area or Los Angeles, if you're coming from the New York or DC area, you're going to have no problem on spending the Mexican peso, right? You're going to have no problem with Mexican prices compared to somebody who's coming from maybe like Cleveland. It might seem more expensive. Okay, cost of living is important for all of these regions or all of these cities. We all look at cost of living when we're looking at where we want to go. I'm going to give you a resource called the Work From Anywhere Toolkit at the end of this video, which will help you figure out or help you find the calculators to see what the cost of living is in each one of these places. If they start to sound good to you, get the Work From Anywhere Toolkit, which I'll link to in the description. I said I'll give it to you at the end. I'll give it to you now. It's at exodussummit.com/toolkit. exodussummit.com/toolkit. That link is in the description. This is a toolkit that includes some cost of living calculator resources, right? Some resources where people have created calculators to tell you what a place will cost. Okay. So Playa del Carmen and Mexico City, Mexico, tied. And they have humongous populations of African American expats. Next on the list of largest communities of African American expats is Jamaica. We cannot close out this list without talking about the Caribbean. I will admit that I am late to the Caribbean party. I am very late. I just realized like less than a year ago that the Caribbean could be an option and an inexpensive option. And Jamaica seems to be one of the most popular option among African American travelers or African American expats. Part of this is because there's a large Jamaican population in the US, and a lot of the descendants of people who have moved to Jamaica are repatriating back to Jamaica. And part of that is just because Jamaica is awesome. I did a live stream right here on this channel with some women who had moved from the US and the UK to the Caribbean. And one of the things that we forgot to talk about on the video, and the other women told me, we forgot to talk about how amazing Jamaica's social scene, nightlife is, right? We talked about some other smaller, quieter islands. But if you want some fun, Jamaica is an option. And it's probably one of the least expensive options in the Caribbean. As far as I know, Jamaica does not yet have a digital nomad visa, right? So most of the places on this list actually, Lisbon, Panama, Mexico, have some sort of residency visa for people who do not need to earn money in their country. Whether they consider it a retiree or a pensioner's visa or a digital nomad visa. I think every other country on this list has an option for you to get residency in that country without getting a job in that country, which again is your plan A. That is what you want, because for one, if you go to an inexpensive place, getting a job there is not going to pay you any money. And number two, it's a long process getting a job abroad. People have to verify that there's no one else in the country who can do that job. Number three, if we want to live better on less, we may just want to keep our American job, whether it's remote or a business that we run ourselves, and you spend that money in the other country. I don't know that Jamaica has a good path to residency. But I do know that Jamaica is part of the CARICOM agreement, which is kind of like the EU of the Caribbean. That's my basic understanding of it. And so if you are a resident in one of the CARICOM countries, you have entry into the other CARICOM countries, some of the other countries in the Caribbean. I think most of the Caribbean countries participate in this. So this might be another reason that Jamaica is so popular, because it is kind of a gateway to other parts of the Caribbean. Okay, so I think those are a couple of the reasons that Jamaica has such a large population of African American expats. Okay, next on the list is Medellin, Colombia. I've never been, and this is the other place that I have not yet visited on the list. Medellin, Colombia has a reputation of having eternal spring-like weather, which makes it a good option on my list. Of course, also they have a good cost of living, and it's not too far from the US. I'm from exotic Dover, Delaware, and so Medellin, Colombia is I think 5 or 6 hour nonstop flight back to DC or New York. I think 5 or 6 hours, right? Which is an important factor, particularly for women who are talking about going abroad long term, because women tend to have still responsibilities back in the United States, whether it's taking care of or being a contact point for aging parents or for adult children or whomever. You know, a lot of women are caregivers, and being able to get back and forth to the U.S. quickly and easily is an important factor for a lot of us. The only feedback that I've gotten from Medellin, as I said, I haven't been there yet, but the feedback that I got is that the food is kind of a little disappointment. Maybe the people that I talked to hadn't been to the right places. Let me know in the comments if they were off base. But compared to Mexico, compared to Panama, compared to Ghana, right? Compared to Jamaica, Medellin is not at the top of the delicious food list. So if moving abroad to embrace foodie life is important to you, this may not work out for you, except that, of course, once you get to Colombia, it's easy to bop around. Same with Panama City, right? These are both places where it's easy to visit the entire region from these cities. Okay. All right. So already we're at the number 7 community on my list, which is a place that I have been, a place that I love, and a place that if Lisbon doesn't work out for me, will be my home, probably within the next couple of years, and that's Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a blooming place for Black expats. I am kind of surprised that it's not talked about more, and I'm on a mission to fix that. Because Costa Rica also is the total package. Costa Rica is also a place that is just a place where you can go and live your life of ease and peace, and would probably be much higher on people's lists if they just knew more about it and knew more about the people who were there. For example, Costa Rica is a peaceful country. They don't have a military. If you're concerned about world events, if you're concerned about being in a place where you could become a target, maybe move Costa Rica up higher on your list. If you're concerned about getting good coffee, also move Costa Rica up higher on your list. I remember being there and just being like, this coffee is delicious. I want to stay. I mentioned this when I mentioned Ghana on the list. I think that sometimes we move abroad to kind of recreate some of the struggle that we live in at home when it's not necessary. Would moving to a more peaceful, greener, lusher country give you a better life? If so, please consider Costa Rica. I interviewed the Global Black Girl here on this channel about Costa Rica for Black women expats. And frankly, she sold me. I'd already been to Costa Rica and I already loved Costa Rica. But she convinced me that this is a place that I need to at least spend some serious time in, if not just flat out move to. I'm going to link to the video, the interview with the Global Black Girl, as well as my interview with the women from Grenada, Barbados, Jamaica, and myself who had visited Curacao. I'm going to link to those videos in the description so that you can get some information on what their lives are like abroad. So make sure you go to the description of this video and watch those other videos so that you can see what I'm talking about when I say that you can live a life of peace of mind, a life of ease, a life of financial wellness, and not struggle by moving abroad. I'm going to throw in a couple of runners-up that had larger communities of African American expats until the COVID. Thailand and South Africa. Thailand and South Africa are also places where you can live inexpensively, where you can avoid harsh winter weather, where you can find community with other Black travelers. But they both went through serious lockdowns and restrictions during, the pandemic. And so I'm not sure if the Black expats who were digital nomads have returned to those places yet. I don't know if those communities have rebounded yet. I know that some people stayed, right? Some are still there, still enjoying their time in these countries. And some of the people who had to leave or had options to leave did leave and probably will be returning. So I'm going to add these two as runners up. I made a video called 5 countries for Black travelers, top 5 countries for Black travelers, and both of those countries are on the list. I enjoyed them thoroughly. I enjoyed the people of these countries. I felt welcomed, and I enjoyed the communities of these countries, right? I enjoyed being part of the Black travel communities in these countries, and so I'm going to include them on the list. And let me know in the comments if you were there or if you've been there recently, if you're seeing a return, right? If you're seeing Black nomads returning to these places or not. All right, please let me know what I missed. Tell me in the comments, what communities out here have African Americans who are thriving, who are blooming? Where are you hearing the talk, right? What places are buzzing according to conversations that are happening in your spaces? Let me know. Don't keep it a secret from me. I'm sharing information with you. Share information with me and with the rest of the people in this community and watching this video. Thank you. All right, so that wraps up my list of the 7 largest communities of African American expats, according to me and my homegirls, okay? So please take a second and hit the like button on this video if you liked it, and share it with somebody who's considering trying life abroad, trying a life of a little more peace, a little more ease, a little less expense, right, by moving abroad. Also, since you've made it this far in the video, I think you're interested. I think you yourself are interested in a life abroad. So I have another video for you called 8 Things You Need to Break Up with the USA. 8 things you need to break up with the USA, and 8 things you don't need. You can watch that video here, okay? It's a live stream, so it's long, but you can watch it in chunks, okay? Watch it, take notes so that you'll know what you need to do in order to start setting yourself up to make life abroad a possibility for you, because it could be a possibility for you. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.